Hello and welcome to Deep In Pact, a proud member of the Doof Network where we dive deep into our Beau's most tattooed work 5 years on. Coming up next is Elliot Diebold.
And that was Ruben Morehouse.
And we pick up Subordination 6.7 with Blake responding in possibly the most level-headed way that he possibly could to Rose's proposition to summon something bad.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. This is a big step though. Like, he's just hearing Rose out, which I think on a level is all she really wants a lot of the time. Like, just for Blake to sit down with her and hear her side of things.
Yeah.
So, like, I was very happy for that. But yeah, especially,
I think most of it feels to me like it's kind of like 85% because Blake has just been called out very recently on not hearing Rose out enough, though.
Yeah, I think 85% is about right. Because like, Blake chalks it up to, I'm so tired right now. I'm just too tired to be surprised. But that feels like an excuse he's telling himself.
Yeah.
But like, especially soon we find out that she doesn't actually want to summon a demon. She just wants to summon something that's like,
that people think is a demon.
Well, that's bad, but not actually a demon. And like, I don't know. That seems like the sort of information you lead with. To me, like, because she sets a real bad tone for the first half of this conversation. Then she actually gets to the crux and is like, oh, that's not so bad. Maybe that was intentional. Like, lead make it seem real bad. So summoning something like Midge or whatever doesn't seem like a bad idea.
Yeah, so she gets kind of negotiated down to just summoning something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is interesting that she doesn't talk about how she doesn't want to actually summon a capital D demon for right off the bat, but who knows what she's thinking at this point. She's clearly in not a super great mental state.
I don't know. This seems well planned. I'm going to stick to my theory that this was intentional to make it to manipulate it so that it doesn't seem as bad as it could be.
Okay. We'll see. We get a fun little beat as they're talking where Rose reveals that her and Evan both don't sleep. I mean, we already knew Rose doesn't sleep, but it's fun to think of them having the nocturnal crew that just hang out.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, they need to get a deck of cards or something for like their late night sessions, but the mirror world probably gets in the way of that. So I'm trying to figure out what games would work between the mirror world and also the dexterity of a bird, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I Spy, as long as the world's not too different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty limiting.
As long as you don't I Spy a sprig of holly or a thing of iron, I suppose.
That unofficial discussion question is, what games could Evan and Rose?
Yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below.
No, I agree. There was just something so captivating about this thought that Evan and Rose like get to hang out in nighttime while the stupid humans fall asleep. Like, I'm picturing an episode of a shitty mid-2000s sci-fi show, which is just the two of them at night getting up to mischief while everyone else is asleep. And then, they save the world, but no one believes them because they all slept through it.
Yeah, you can imagine a premise for a show where they're going around at nighttime and the only thing is it has to be like nothing ever happened in the morning. Yeah. Anyway, so Rose kind of clarifies that she's kind of annoyed by her lack of agency and she wants to summon a familiar of sorts. I mean, not a familiar with a capital F, but, an other that can be her hands in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, the word manservant comes up in the context of Evan, and I think that's a fair description of basically what she's after. She's after a pair of hands that she has control of, indirectly at least.
Rotating her mirror, things like that, things that she just can't do.
Yeah, and I mean, she's sort of right when she says, like, way back when they first started talking about domains and familiars, Blake did sort of say, oh, well, when I get a familiar, they'll be able to help you too. And, I mean, that clearly hasn't worked out. Like, Evan, isn't really dexterous enough to hold up a mirror, as she points out.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's something that she does need, but maybe the kinds of things that she's summoning are not... They have a lot more functionality than just holding up a mirror. Like, if she just wanted someone to move around stuff for her, I'm sure there's a spirit of a murdered butler or something that would make for a great other. I don't know if you have to go all out and summon, some of the creepy things that we see later in this chapter.
No, you're right. There's a bit of a discrepancy between what she talks about here and what she talks about summoning later.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess when you have access to a diabolic library,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
it
where your
kind of,
mind goes.
yeah. Yeah, everything looks like
Yeah, I don't imagine Rose Senior had much in the way of butler stuff, like,
of
listed in the
helpful
library.
others, yeah. Yeah, for all we know, there's like bad others are only like 1/10 of all the others out there. There's also really helpful ones, but Granny Thorburn just didn't give a shit about those.
Well, yeah, but also like Blake and Rose haven't really met any of them yet
It's
either.
true. Well, yeah, no, that's true.
Maybe their
It does
karma's bad, so all the good ones just avoid them.
fair. So finally, Rose gets around to saying she's not talking about summoning a demon, just something malicious that everybody thought was a demon, which is, I guess, better.
Yeah, I mean, I got the impression from what she was saying here that when she says people used to think they were sort of demons, she's talking like the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
Which, obviously in the Western world was a pretty fucking superstitious time and the church was ruling, so it kind of makes sense that everything not good was labeled a demon back then.
Yeah.
Like even goblins and stuff, probably, like, and that kind of, it gives me historical context as to why something like the hyena would be a diabolist's job, which has still been something that didn't really feel right to me. Like, it seemed more like a Maggie, well, not Maggie specifically, but, something more
a
like
goblin
that.
queen kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. You're right. Maybe I'm being harsh by saying that they're just the same thing if everyone thinks it's a demon, but I do think that perception is important, and you get the idea that you get the sense that Granny Thorburn kind of wrote about people still contemporarily thinking a lot of these things are demons, right? Well, I definitely got that sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, it also seems to be one of those things where belief fuels it a bit. Like, if everyone thinks you're bad and a demon, then it becomes a little bit true or truer. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right before. It's a if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail type situation where Rose has a library of diabolic stuff, and so she's only looking at pseudo diabolic others.
Yeah. So Rose starts kind of reading off the list of potential bachelors to summon. They're all pretty unique and interesting things. So I'm excited to see as many of them as we get to, I suppose.
I like that analogy of them all being bachelors. Behind curtain number 1, she's large, inbred, and in charge. Give it up for Midge.
Woo! No, yeah, I think the bachelor analogy works perfectly because it's like, they're talking about it being a familiar, and familiar is like a marriage. Sorry, Blake, but it is. And so, she's basically picking an arranged marriage here.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about like where they go with this then.
Yeah, I guess. It's interesting. Well, there's something I want to pull out later about when Midge is used that I think is, I don't know, fascinating. But we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. I also love this line. There's when Rose is first describing one of the others she wants. I can't remember which, but Blake says, she's the sort of other you'd want on our side, keeping us company for however long. And Rose just responds, don't think I didn't hear the tone there. And I love this because I totally heard the tone even before Wildbow wrote that. Like, I think that's just a great example of how well characterized Blake and Rose and their relationship is. That I was already like hearing this sort of subtly condescending tone, and I love how he spelt it out as well.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize, but I totally hear it in this sarcastic, like, she's the sort of other you'd want on our side, as opposed to just a genuine question. Yeah, it's a fun little way to pull out. I mean, in a written format, it's a fun way to pull out when these kinds of tones exist, right?
Yeah,
you can't
exactly.
hear them.
Yeah, but I was amazed because when Wildbow did spell it out, I was like, oh, I totally heard that already. Like that, and I think that's a testament to how well written they are. There's also a bit like Blake doesn't want to kill Laird, which Rose kind of says is stupid, and I kind of have to be on Team Rose here. I don't know how much more Laird has to do before, mate. How many times does someone have to actively go out of their way to try and kill you before it's fair game to do it back?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting because Blake definitely seems like he's not ready to kill anybody, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's fighting an immortal incarnation, so...
Right, but I think there's a distinction in his head between human and other, right?
That's true, yeah.
Sure, he's happy to kill, I don't know, the Erasure Demon or whatever, but a human, oh no, they're special, I guess.
Yeah, which I mean, I definitely would not necessarily agree with, especially in Led's case. I don't know. I just if this was me in this situation, I'd probably be at the point where Led's fucked with me enough that I wouldn't feel too. It wouldn't keep me up too late at night. I think if I had to pull the trigger there.
Interesting. Okay.
Well. But one of the others Rose lists is James Corvidae. I think I'm saying Corvidae right. And she describes what he looks like, and for some reason, it just immediately made me think of the mysterious man at the end of 1.2. Like, so going back to our very first episode, where Blake was attacked by the, we found out they were called Fjordbold or something from the Briar
Bird
Girl.
Skull creatures, I'm pretty happy to call them. Yeah.
And so I went back and read the description of this man, and there's not really that much that's similar. Like, the man's described as having a crooked stance, and James Corvidae has a slouch, but I there's really not much tying them together, but for some reason I'm really feeling it, and
it doesn't even seem like their abilities are overlapping, right? I mean,
well, the old man
whole shtick
didn't really do anything that we saw. Like, it actually got me thinking, because Corvidae's whole thing is he forms strong, inconvenient connections, and I've been trying to figure out what he might have done to Blake right at the start of the story. That's fucked with him till now. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this jumped out at me like it did, but it did. And also, it made me realize that the old creepy man from 1.2 hasn't really been explained.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. When I first read this, my brain immediately jumped to the guy from the Fell's Ancestors interlude, you know, the companion, but again, the powers
the
don't
face
really fit
stealer
there.
guy.
Yeah, the face stealer guy.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
just kind of a weird, creepy guy, kind of slender, feels a bit Victorian. It kind of slid halfway into place, and then I was like, actually, no, that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, well, it is hard to say because we haven't seen. Wait, the old man at the end of 1.2 didn't do anything, so we can't really say
could
much
be
for
anybody.
certain. Yeah, and it may never come up again. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah. How do you know? It might have just been a creepy guy at a truck stop. I mean, that's not impossible. So Rose is kind of slowly convincing Blake that this is actually a pretty good plan, and they're interrupted by a new guest. Maggie's back. Yay! Woo!
It's like the second she's back, I just remembered how fucking fun she is. Like, it's been so long since she was in the story, but she walks in with like jeans under a skirt and a mismatched top, and just immediately is sort of being sarcastic to Blake, and I was like, oh god, I missed her.
Yeah, I pulled out one of her first lines when she's back, when they're talking about Evan having Blake being Evan's. I mean, Blake having a familiar called Evan, and Maggie says, "Not a very imposing name. I was hoping for Blake's familiar to have a name like Melmoth the Skullfer." She stopped short and then frowned. Melmoth. I don't think that will ever not be a funny joke.
Yeah, it's hilarious, and I mean, I can't believe you missed the very next line, which I think is even better. Which Evan just responds, "Nope, just Evan. I'm dead." It's just such an 8-year-old way to introduce yourself. It's like, my defining trait is that I'm dead.
He's very to the point, isn't he?
Yeah, it's great. There's also a funny bit a bit later where Maggie can't say the word nasty, and she gets real mad at, I guess, just the spirits or the universe or something for not being able to say nasty. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's interesting. She's kind of like, she's kind of she trips up over her not swearing thing a few times here, which, whatever. It's you'd think she'd know the rules by now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd really struggle with that, so I kind of get it.
Fair enough.
There's also this bit where Maggie goes to touch Blake on the cheek after he says that she's his friend or something. Yeah. I can't remember the exact thing that leads up to it, but obviously Tiffany reacts to this, which is hilarious. But then I was quite interested in Maggie's follow-up. So Maggie says to Blake after he sort of flinches and she's like, oh, whoops. Where she's like, you were calling me a friend. That makes me feel things. I don't have many flesh and blood buddies, And so either she's like genuinely coming on to him a bit here, right? Or she's shit stirring, or both. I don't know.
Do you think she's intentionally doing this just to fuck with like Tiffany?
And or Blake? Like maybe, or like I don't know. Like the first time I read it, I was sort of like, wait, is she actually Wait, is that sort of Maggie's way of saying that she is kind of interested? I don't know.
But
It's
she's
weird.
pretty young, right? I don't know. That kind of skews. Isn't she like 17?
I think she's 17 and Blake's 20, so it's not great, but that's
Yeah.
also not huge. So
Yeah, you're right. It's not the worst.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a lot creepier.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so Maggie's back. Blake kind of fills her in on everything that's been going on, and Rose is kind of talking about her plan to Maggie and lists off more options. The final option, Midge, an inbred kind of cave woman, I guess.
Yeah, like Midge is basically from that really scary X-Files episode, like the one that's really scary where there's the inbred family. And so she's so inbred that she's not even really human anymore, which is crazy awesome, honestly. Like I want and it really fits in with incest being a sin. Like we saw that incest demon, and it's kind of tracks us. Like it can literally help turn you into a not human.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, right? I mean, this to me is kind of confirmation of perception being one of the most important things. Because I don't know. I think Midge, obviously she acts quite like an other when she's eventually summoned, right?
Well, she's only summoned right at the end of this chapter.
Oh, right, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This feels like perception. People think Midge is a demon and, whatever, an other, and that's what kind of makes her into one. I don't know. It feels kind of creepy to me that she was basically just a human at some point, right?
Yeah, well, the way it's all sort of phrased, there's questions about whether, like, could this happen to just a normal person? Like, if a normal person goes that much off the rails and does stuff in isolation, like, could they turn into a midge? Or is the fact that she's really inbred, like, a factor that means it's only possible that way?
Well, I don't know. To me, it's the fact that she's inbred means people see her and can easily apply that label to her, and more people applying the label to her is what really sells it, right? I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe it's a lot easier. It's kind of like having a head start to becoming a not quite a demon.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It kind of creeps me out, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel bad for her.
It's a pretty terrifying thought, yeah. Yeah, so I love this line after they all start. After Rose basically makes the case for Midge, Blake glances at the others. Evan's expression was unreadable. Tiffany looked spooked. And Rose said, please. And I just really love this as like one line to sort of capture everyone's feelings. Like, I feel like Evan's just fucking lost. Like, this is probably so far beyond like what he could comprehend at this stage. Tiffany is smart and sensible because she's terrified. and then like Rose's desperation is so well captured.
Yeah, I don't know. Rose's desperation kind of... I don't know if this is ultimately the right decision. I mean, she summons a bunch of... or she, preps to summon a bunch of creepy shit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I want to read out one more line which I think is important, where Blake notices that Maggie seems excited. You're excited, I said. For this? Yeah, she said, smiling. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why? And Maggie kind of says something to the effect of, I've been waiting for a situation like this for a long time. And I think Blake later on thinks that something is off with Maggie. And I think these are the lines that really start him thinking that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, like, there's obviously reasons that she could be excited for this given her backstory, but it does seem a little odd.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously know more about Maggie than Blake does because we saw her interlude, and so we know that she's cursed to do those like 3 rounds of like Goblin off or just like, I think the exact prophecy was like blood, darkness, and fire. Like I went and looked it up, and yeah, like this seems like a very good situation for her to try and check off round 2. So I reckon that's what she's doing. Like, she's excited because the like she brings up that there's rules and structure to this, and so it's a great way for her to sneak in her round 2 of her curse thing.
Yeah. I guess she's always opportunistic, that Maggie. So at some point, while they're all kind of talking, the plan goes from, oh, I want to summon one of these creatures to, hey, let's get ready to summon all of them. And Blake doesn't really have a chance to object to this. We see he's about to head outside to chat to the others. That's also interesting to me, that they kind of just shift into, yeah, let's summon all of them, why not?
It's a bit of a... It's after Maggie arrives that there's this sort of change in the conversation where they start talking about, summoning more than one. And it's not even really addressed. Like, it's just the conversation keeps flowing, and Blake never seems to stop them and be like, wait, hold on, when did we go for, like, we're going to be summoning a bunch, which is definitely where Maggie seems to steer the conversation quite quickly. Like, I mean, as a reader / like spirit, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a terrible plan.
Yeah, and so, the next thing to happen is Blake, Evan, and Tiffany kind of go outside to take a outside chat. And Blake kind of says, oh, I kind of feel like I should stop this, but I kind of want to be nice to Rose, so I'm not going to, which is, I don't know, interesting.
Well, Tiffany tells him that's a really fucking bad reason, and he's just like, yeah, it probably is.
Yeah. Blake interestingly takes the hyena outside with him as well, right?
Yeah, and so I pulled out this whole quote because I really want to read it because it's great. So Blake grabs the sword and, why are you bringing the sword? Evan asked. Because I feel like I should, I said. That doesn't make a lot of sense, Evan said. It would make less sense if I felt like I should and I didn't. Yeah, but it would make more sense if you had a good reason, Evan said. Yeah. Which is just, Evan's just eviscerated Blake's entire methodology in one fell swoop.
Yep. He's straight to the point, that Evan. Yeah, so about this sword, like... So Blake, it's interesting. I don't know if Blake doesn't know why he's bringing it outside, or he does, but he doesn't want to say. But he kind of puts together that as he's outside, he feels like something's off about Maggie, and he doesn't trust the hyena, something so powerful, a goblin so powerful, around her until he kind of puts his finger on what it is a bit more.
Which is crazy, because it's basically the whole reason she was one of his champions. Like, he talks about how he actually just wanted to call her up for help with the hyena and then, like, have her run interference in Jacob's spell, which at first I was like, oh, that's a good idea, cause Laird trouble back home and force him to leave. But then I realized, like, Sandra and stuff are still there, so I don't know how much Maggie would actually be able to achieve. Like, losing Laird doesn't, like, decimate their abilities, it just, like, dampens them a little bit.
Yeah.
But, like, Blake seems pretty convinced that something has happened in Jacob's spell since he was forced out, which is ominous. Like, we went out of Jacob's Bell frying pan into Toronto Fire, and now I'm worried we're going to go back into Jacob's Bell frying pan that's now made out of lava or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, do you want to chuck in a speculation, Elliot? What do you think has happened in Jacob's Bell?
Well, with the Thorburn house on lock and Blake gone and seemingly under Conquest's thumb, it might have been a good time for the new Bahame and Duchamp alliance to have a crack and try and establish the being lords like they wanted. I don't know. I think the house was the thing stopping them from doing that, though, and the house is still there, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I guess we'll see. So Phil comes back from his little trip with Alexis, but it turns out as he's coming back, the sisters have started to make a play. There are tens of dolls and mannequins all kind of attacking Phil's car or standing out on the street.
Yeah, this is a bit of a jarring transition for me. Like, there's a section break and, I don't know exactly what it was, but it took me a while to realize that things were tense here. Like, I think it sort of opens with Blake sort of saying, oh, and then, Phil came back and we all got in his car and then there was a problem, and it kind of struck me as a bit of a past tense thing. And it took me a while before I realized that these dolls were actually a serious threat. At first I was just like, oh, Blake's just casually recounting the dolls and how annoying they are. And then it was like, oh no, these are serious.
These are right here, right now. Yeah, no, these dolls are very interesting. There are, I think, 5 different types that all kind of react to different stimuli to kind of track their prey. Basically, as a way to kind of punish you anytime you do anything, right? So there's like wind dolls, which move if you breathe or talk. Fire dolls, which just kind of slowly move towards you because they can sense your heat. Earth dolls, which move when you move, water dolls, which move when you use magic, and metal dolls, who we don't know what they do.
Yeah, I mean, my gut is that if you try to use like technology, like when Fel fires his gun or something, that would cause them. Like, so using technology, because that's sort of what metal represents based on what Fel says.
Yeah.
But it's like a cool little puzzle box, and it's fun watching Fel and Blake figure it out. And then Blake sort of immediately ties it to the elements of the awakening ceremony, which I guess are like the equivalent of, so these are the 5 elements of the world of Pact, more or less. But it primes us really well for the later comment about wood versus metal that Blake makes an immediate connection to his awakening ceremony, and it's good to see. Like, it's really well done that Blake ties them to the awakening ceremony now, so that like our heads are already in that space. So then Wobbo doesn't even have to spell out the connection that Blake makes a bit later. We're already sort of there.
Yeah. There's a few things about this that all kind of come together quite nicely, right? I really do like the setup for this fight. It's just another, like, all these practitioner battles are also different because basically every practitioner has their own unique power set, and it makes for a really interesting kind of set of puzzles where it's all just kind of figuring out, okay, what does this do? How do I deal with this? Okay, how do we beat this thing, right?
Yeah, there's so much creativity in this story when it comes to like powers and creatures and abilities, and like Wildbow's really getting good use out of the freedom that the world he's created gives him.
Yeah, I want to pull out one other quote where Blake looks over to Rose and notices her attention was elsewhere, focused on Maggie. What was going on there?
Yeah, and I mean, because this is the bit where Fel says that wood is a dying element and metal is replacing it, and of course, Rose had Holly in her version of the awakening ritual, and Blake had metal, so he immediately draws a connection there. I wonder if Rose did some old school awakening ceremony. Yeah, anyway, whatever. But like, yeah. So Rose is like focused on Maggie, which, like, I wonder if Maggie, because I'm convinced that Maggie's big secret here is sort of that she's trying to egg this on and make it worse to get it to count as round 2. And so maybe she lets slip some of that to Rose, and so Rose is kind of freaking out because she knows that this has the potential to escalate now that it's a prophecy thing.
Yeah.
Or she's just freaked out by maybe not even like, oh, that things are going to get worse, just hearing Maggie's story, and it's just, that'd probably be like, whoa.
Yeah, that would be enough to kind of distract her, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, I suppose. So Rose kind of releases Midge to fight in this battle, and the battle begins.
Yeah, it's such a great finishing line to describe Midge just like attacking the field. It's great. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Midge does next chapter.
Yeah. I'm sure it will be. She seems interesting. I think the quote is 300 pounds of inbred muscle and fat appeared on the street amid the shower of shards. Like, oh shit, here she is.
It's pretty fucking terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the end of Subordination 6.7. This is I like this chapter. It sets up a few, it's kind of like the mid-arc lull, right? It sets up a few interesting different things that are going to be happening, right? The weirdness with Maggie, we get Rose's new allies, we get, some new enemies to fight. Lots of good little bits.
Yeah, I almost felt there was a sense throughout this chapter of people were talking about where the line is for them. Like, we've established the rules, and now we've got like sort of the first bit of quiet time, and they've made this plan to try and wait it out. And like a lot of the things being discussed in this chapter basically boil down to, well, what are we willing to do to keep this contest sort of going, or to try and win it? It was sort of a recurring theme, I think, in various conversations.
Yeah, I guess, because we're thinking about what they're willing to summon, right? As well as we get a few conversational beats about things like the hyena, or Blake willing to kill Laird or not.
Yeah,
all kinds of things of like, what are we actually going to do here?
Yeah, like what's on and off the table, and there seem to be varying opinions on that topic.
Yeah, which I'm sure won't lead to any kind of conflict later on.
No, surely not.
Before we wrap up the episode, I wanted to dive back into some comments from 5 years ago when this chapter was first released, and see what people are thinking about the story. I was actually hoping there's some Maggie Holt theorizing in here, but there's less in here than I would have thought based off of how much of a thing that seems to be in the chapter.
I don't know. From what I saw, most people are sort of on the same page as me, where they're just assuming that it's probably just her, her round 2 thing for her prophecy. Like there's probably not too much more going on. I don't know. I mean, there might be, I guess, but for me, it seems like it'd be enough for it to just be the round two thing.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. What did you find any comments of people? What did people think?
I didn't really look at many of them too closely. The sort of comment thread that I've pulled out to talk about here includes comments by users Brain Freeze, Nega Darkwing, Mian, and Shiaman 3773. So Brain Freeze kind of notes that Maggie kind of said yes when Blake asked her if she was enchanted. Something that Blake didn't really stop to clarify. And so so Brain Freeze wonders if there's more that she's not telling him. Nega Darkwing kind of comes in and says, well, it's probably just the prophecy. And then Mian comes in and says, Maggie should probably tell him everything because it's pretty shitty to like drag your friends into these sorts of situations blind.
Yeah.
Which Shiaman 3773 points out the irony in Blake being mad that somebody dragged him in half blind, which I loved. So that was an interesting. Like maybe some of Maggie's secret keeping here is actually meant to reflect some stuff Blake has done in the past.
Yeah.
How that might be coming back to bite him in the ass a bit. So I'll be interested.
That is an interesting angle.
Yeah, come at it from that angle. Especially if it does turn out to just be the prophecy. That's something we know about. So it's kind of like we'll be seeing it from the perspective of we know that exactly how Blake's kind of getting screwed. Which is usually, we're watching Blake kind of screw other people by not telling them stuff. And it'll be interesting for us to see it the other way.
Yeah, interesting. I kind of was hoping for a bit more wild out there fan theories, but everyone was just kind of like, yeah, it's the prophecy. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Anyway, so I put out a comment by Harden865, who's basically, people get talking about like Inquisitors, people hunting down Diabolists, and Harden kind of pulls out everything that Blake has done and comes to the conclusion that it's enough to warrant Witch Hunters and Inquisitors already wanting to hunt him down and kill him. He's obviously done some demonic summoning. He's obviously from a Thorburn family. He's fucked with a lot of things in Jacob's Bell. He's potentially about to go under Conquest's thumb. Like, a lot of things that are like, oh, maybe he should be put down.
Yeah, well, Isadora's already talked about killing him as a mercy to him and the world, obviously. But like you're right. Like he's really punched above his weight in terms of like what he's gone up against so far. So it's very easy to believe that a witch hunter or inquisitor not super familiar with the situation would very much read him as like fucking dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of it is like he's beat X in a fight, which, yeah, I guess makes him seen as more threatening, but I don't know if it makes him more likely to be kind of put down as a Diabolist. It feels a bit like just because he's fought Laird a few times, he's evil, which I don't know if necessarily is true, but I'm sure that's how some practitioners would see it.
Yeah, I get the impression that the general consensus would be, so he's from a big Diabolist family line. He has done some diabolizing.
And he stirs shit up.
Well, yeah, and also, like, he's proven that he's pretty good. Like, beating all those people in fights just kind of shows that he's a survivor, and that's not really what most people want from a Diabolist. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this doesn't ever become relevant to the story. I guess we'll see.
I mean, it's been talked about so much. It'll have to come up at some point. Like, we had witch hunters back in Jacob's Bell. Like, I think, they'll be in the story in some shape or form, but I guess we'll see exactly what form that takes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. Maybe in the next episode. Maybe not, probably not. There's already enough stuff to deal with, I think. Anyway, speaking of the next episode, Elliot, that next episode, 6.8, is coming out on Wednesday the 15th of May, in just a few days.
But if you can't wait that long to talk about PAX some more, head into the discussion thread in the show notes below, and we'll talk about it with you there.
Yes, everybody will be talking about Pact in there. If you want to get in contact with us, the best way to do so is by shooting us a tweet. Our Twitter is @MediaMDPodcast.
Yes, you can also find out more details about us and the rest of the great Doof network, of which we're a proud member, over at doofmedia.com.
Actually, yes, while you're there, you can check out the new episode of We've Got Ward, which is coming out. yeah, lots of good stuff happening in Ward at the moment. A lot of interesting detective mystery stuff. So it's very ripe for discussion and theory crafting.
Yeah, it's been a great arc to follow along with. And if you love the Doof Network and you want to help keep it around, head over to patreon.com/doofmedia. We're entirely organized by, or not organized, we're entirely based on Patreon donations to keep us afloat. So every dollar helps.
Yeah, this show definitely exists in the format that it is because of the Doof Media Patreon. So yeah, check it out.
Absolutely.
While you're there, you should also check out Wildbow's Patreon, patreon.com/Wildbow. He writes all these awesome stories that we play around with. So, he should get some of that money too. So make sure you head over to his Patreon and check it out. Throw him a few dollars for doing what he's been doing for, man, a long time now, right? Like
yeah, I
8
think
years, 9 years?
I think he's about to hit 8 years, which is crazy. Yeah, like he's done so much, and it's all good that I've seen. I haven't read Twig, but I mean, I can't imagine that it's bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm halfway through it, but yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, but I guess we'll see everyone on Wednesday.
Yep, Wednesday for 6.8. See you then.